Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports. When
It comes to
Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
It's a blessing to be in this position, and we're just thankful to be here. We're thankful to have the opportunity to go out there and play in front of the 12 man.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
It's been special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
And this is a real program. It's not fake. This is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
Buchanan.
Nuño,
Football.
never a bad time to talk about college football.
Well, I read an article over the weekend that kind of caught my attention. It had some things about A&M. There's actually several articles. It was 4 articles. 100 questions that will define the 2025 season from Saturday down south. And I thought I would bring up the A&M questions.
Okay, let's hear them.
Okay. Question number 1. Actually, this is question number 12 on the list, but the first A&M question. Can KC Concepcion get back to an All-American trajectory?
Well, I think he can. He's a very talented guy. It's going to depend on, I think, Marcel.
Well, Marcel's going to come up in these questions at some point, but
because KC was an All-American type
a couple years back.
2 years ago, they changed quarterbacks. Their offense wasn't the same. You know, quite frankly, a receiver is very dependent, obviously, on who's going to throw him the ball. And that guy is dependent on who's going to protect him and so on and so forth. But I think KC Concepcion, he's a big-time player.
Let's pretend that happens, okay?
Okay.
What does that mean for Marcel? What does that mean for the offense? What does that mean for A&M's potential record if he is an All-American type wide receiver?
If A&M has an All-American caliber wide receiver, it's a 10-win season, I think. At the very least 9, which you can say, well, big deal. It's only one more win, but
it's worth a win.
Yeah. I think the guy, if KC Concepcion has an All-American type season, the one individual who's going to benefit most is Le'Veon Moss.
He's going to be able to run.
Yeah.
He might be able to run anyway.
Well, he can.
Yeah.
But just imagine
if you got to worry,
giving that guy even more space.
Yeah, and I'm curious what that would do for the second or third wide receiver. If it's Craver, you know, there's
you get more one-on-one coverage. I mean, it's really a numbers game. And if you get to one guy that you got to put 2 on him,
it's going to open somebody up.
Open somebody else up.
Yeah. If that were to happen, I don't know win total because I still got a lot of questions on the defensive side. But that offense that we sometimes, you know, in the losses, they struggled to move the ball, right? I know that they led the SEC in scoring during SEC play. But we all saw certain games when they couldn't get going or they had those slow starts. You know, when they had to open up the playbook, they were able to move the ball, but a lot of teams are able to do that.
I think they obviously had trouble moving the football against Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't consistently move, but I don't think they had trouble moving the ball against Texas. Not for the entire game.
No, they started well, and fourth quarter-ish, they played well. The middle of that game, they definitely hit a drought. And LSU, though, entire first half.
Right. But sometimes you just have to understand certain opponents you're not going to move the ball against as well.
Right, yeah.
And, Notre Dame's defense had a lot to do with them not moving the ball against Notre Dame. But I think if you successfully moved the ball against Notre Dame, you would have scored 24 points.
I think quarterback play in that game.
If you scored 24 points, you would have won.
I think quarterback play was the issue in the Notre Dame game.
Absolutely, yeah.
And unfortunately. Then the second question on the list, which is 31st overall, the 100.
Okay.
Will Marcel Reed be able to improve enough as a passer?
That's a great question. I think he's good right now.
Yep.
The question is, how much better is he going to get? And the biggest question to me, I hear people talk about his arm strength. Armstrong's always been overrated. Accuracy and being able to read the defense.
All right. So let's play that out for a moment. Let's say he's exactly the same level of passer this year, but you have an All-American type wide receiver in Casey Concepcion.
Well, if he's All-American, that means he got the ball enough. They're not going to give somebody an All-American honor for 50 catches.
Right.
Right. I would hope he's. I would be fine with him being the same about as effective passing, as long as he's reading the defense and finding the right guy more frequently.
Sure.
That's, to me, the question.
And then he does become, by default, a better passer because he finds the open guy.
Right.
Let's kind of take two paths then. Sophomore slump / takes 2 steps forward.
I would think that you're more likely to take steps forward. Again, I don't care who it is. You bring a quarterback in here and ask him, how much better were you from your freshman to your sophomore year, or your first year as a starter to second? And 100% are going to tell you, oh yeah, it's a night and day difference. Everything. I understand it more. You've heard the old cliche, the game slows down, but you understand it more. You're more in control. You're more confident. All those things. So I would expect all those things to be true for Marcello, just as they've been true for any other quarterback.
And if we can get some defensive line video playing here, Luke, because the next question, number 30, is what will life be like for Texas A&M without an elite defensive line? And my response to that was, I don't think they were elite down the stretch.
The talent was the parts was, you've heard of the sum of the parts. The parts were better than the actual sum last year. You look at all these guys that were taken first, second, and third round, and you're thinking, man, what great individual players. But especially after, especially going into November, it just really wasn't. I mean, we can talk about how good they were individually, but as a unit, they just weren't that productive.
They were not elite in November. They weren't.
Or even in the LSU game.
Second half of the LSU game, they got the Nussmeier.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, a big part of they got, yes, they did, but a big part of that was P.J. Mays was just making plays.
He was making plays. That is true. The next question on the list is 26, and it says, who will be this year's surprise team? And I'm just going to read you a little bit of what it says here. Every year, the SEC has a team or two that blow the regular season win total out of the water. In 24, it was South Carolina, who won 9 games, despite being projected to be potentially miss a bowl game by Vegas. In 23, Missouri had a win total of 6, ended up winning 10. For 2025, my pick would be A&M. He says he's got some questions on both sides of the ball. We all do. But
I would say, name me the team in the SEC that doesn't have questions on both sides of the ball.
Because I got questions for the perceived top teams, and I certainly have questions for the middle tier as well.
Yeah, so it's fair to say that there are questions at Texas A&M. I have them. I've said it before. I believe that A&M is going to score 30 to 35 points, if not more, a game, average. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep anybody from scoring 30 to 35 points a game. Maybe they can, but we all acknowledge that they're going to have to be significantly better. Now, we have reasons we think they might be, but until they actually demonstrate it, we're going to have questions.
All right, and this is the maroon Kool-Aid portion of the conversation for me.
Okay.
I believe in Mike Elko.
That's one of the reasons, that they might be.
And if he's got his hands all over the defense, then I feel that, how much better would that defense have to have been last year?
Not a whole lot better.
Right.
Give me, all right, take one touchdown off the board for your opponent in every game.
Well, that's significant, but yes.
Well, you still
or one score, right?
You still lose to Texas. You still lose to Notre Dame, but you beat Auburn.
But I don't know if people forget, but the Texas game, look, I'm a believer that A&M's defense played well enough to beat Texas that day, although I do think Texas was able to move the ball 20 to 20 on you. But if you're able to score on that first drive, I think the game is played completely different. If you're able to score late, the fourth quarter is different.
Imagine if they had taken a field goal on that first drive and everything else is the same. It's 10-7, and you block that punt, you're on the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
10-7.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, 17-10 is what I would.
But at the same time, to me, you have a lot of those throughout the season, which means that's who you were.
Here's where A&M can make big steps this year. If just make on defense, make the plays that are there to be made that aren't really supposed to be that difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep coming back to a pass against Texas where it looks like it's going to be an interception, and it goes right through the guy. It's like the guy
Bryce
became
Anderson.
a goat. Well, I was going to cut him a break. But you got to make that play. It's there to be made. If you're a college football player playing that position, you cannot let that one get by. How about the sack against South Carolina? It was early in the game.
Second play of the game.
It was early. It may not have made a difference, but at least on that
I think it makes a big difference.
Makes a difference.
Yeah.
Or the sack that they didn't get on Quinn Ewers, where all of a sudden
he runs for 20 yards.
This guy with a bad ankle outruns your safeties for 20 yards.
Yeah. Here's the last question.
The plays are there to be made.
Here's the last question from Saturday Down South, which is basically, to me, an extension of the first question. Question number 79 out of their 100. What if Texas A&M is a surprise playoff team? I'll just read you a little bit of this. A&M's flying under the radar too much. The Aggies looked to be a potential playoff team during the middle of last season before sputtering in November in year 2 with Elko. I wonder if A&M can improve to 9 or 10 wins to get back into that playoff hunt. The schedule is manageable aside from the tough road games against Texas and Notre Dame. They didn't add LSU, but I'll throw in LSU there.
I don't think it's out of the question. You're going to have to beat South Carolina at home.
Florida.
Again, South Carolina, Florida, both of those teams have the same questions that A&M has. You're going to have to probably beat LSU on the road. You haven't done that since '94, but you've been in position.
Yeah.
Make the plays that are there to be made.
Do me this favor, Texas A&M football. Get me to November where playoffs are still a possibility. And I would love for them to win the entire month.
They did that last year.
Well, that's my next point.
Give me a strong November.
Give me a stronger November.
Like I said, we want to get to the point where we no longer put the no in November.
Right. It's
Yo-Vember.
Yo-Vember. That's what I want. This is TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It is the Go Hour presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Currently hanging out at the Holistic Planning Cool Zone.
I missed my cue.
Yeah, it's all right. Sorry. If you want to be a part of the conversation, call us up, 979-693-1150. That is the Buppy's Catering Hotline. You can call us up. We can talk about these questions. Give us your thoughts, or you can text that same number, 979-693-1150. We go around the room, left to right, through the glass. Luke Evangelist is producing the program today. Luke, hello, sir.
Good morning, y'all. How are y'all doing?
Well, that's more of the... Remember last week he kind of started the show kind of like, hello, guys. That's more of the Luke I was looking for.
He's probably a little bit concerned about being in that situation last week, I should say.
Being in the chair, or that A&M baseball had just been eliminated?
Probably just being in the chair. I've always thought Luke should be in the chair.
Okay, first of all, I don't even know what that means, but I'm going to take it as just another one of Obi's comments where he passes it off as an innocent comment, but we all know what he's really trying to say here.
I really don't know. He said the chair.
Come on. Let's not play games here.
He's not doing the electrocution chair. You're in you have a lot of responsibility in that chair.
Well, that could be an option, though.
Well,
Obi knows exactly what he means by sitting in a chair.
The chair. What does it mean, Luke?
Like you're grounded?
You sound like you need a high chair.
All right, let's. We don't need to talk about it on.
We all know what Olin means, but
I don't know
what he means.
I really don't know.
Luke said he didn't know what he meant.
Anyway, Luke, what shirt are you wearing?
Mark, deal with this kid.
I've got a Will Lee shirt on the blanket. It's a custom shirt.
Will he be better this year, Ob?
If he's just as good, I'll be fine. I think when you're a junior, that's who you are.
Yeah.
I think when you're a junior, you pretty much you have become the player you're going to be, pretty much.
Sorry, Luke. Continue on, please.
No, I was just saying I think he's going to be Willie good this season. But he was also Willie good last year. So this year he might be Willie good.
That was Willie lame. Luke.
Oh, my God.
Luke.
OB, are you going to be nice to me ever?
What do you mean? I'm always nice to you.
The people think differently.
Who are the people?
Somebody texted in and said that Olin's being mean to Luke and he should be nicer.
All right, we just lost every viewer and listener. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Ava Davis in the hizzy. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. You did not know you were doing the Social Center today.
I did not.
That's all right. You're a pro.
Okay.
You do what you do. What do you have for us this morning?
The Texas A&M women's golf program is excited to announce the signing of two-time Sun Belt Golfer of the Year and Georgia Southern transfer Louise Rowe. Head coach Chadwell says, what was even better than how great of a golfer she is was that once I got to know her, I could see how well she would fit into our program. Her work ethic and organization and determination are perfect for our team. The rising junior was ranked number 5 mid-major golfer at the scoreboard rankings this past season and number 71 among all collegiate players.
Excellent stuff. Anything else for us this morning?
Former Texas A&M shoutout Haley Cooper fired 2 under 70 on Sunday to cement her place in the top 10 at the 80th U.S. Women's Opens at Erin Hills Golf Course. Cooper, who lettered for the Aggies in 2022 and 2023, became the first Texas A&M player to finish in the top 10 at the U.S. Open.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you. OB, Benjamin's joining the team this week, and he's kind of shadowing, and he's from the Northeast, right?
Amherst, Ben.
Yeah, so he probably hasn't very often had Texas barbecue.
Oh, well,
and
that's got to change.
Well, so if you were to say, young man, I want to kind of, teach you how to work in the industry, let's go have lunch, where would you take him?
Oh, 1775.
Why?
Well, first of all, because I'm a good dude.
Yeah, well, this is part of the truth.
Regardless of what Luke says.
Yeah.
Notice I've never taken Luke to 1775. I would take you to 1775. First of all, I want you to experience the best of Texas.
Yeah.
And part of the best of Texas is the food. We eat well here. And Texas barbecue is kind of like the apex of all the dining options in the state of Texas. And if you're going to have Texas barbecue, get the best. Well, the best of the best, 1775.
Being a newbie, he would probably need a sampler.
Yeah, because you want to have some of that brisket. You want to have the jalapeno cheese sausage. You ever had a jalapeno cheese sausage? You got to have jalapeno cheese sausage. You got to have, if you're, like David, watching the calories, you got the smoked turkey. I love the pork ribs. And, of course, the macaroni and cheese. The
queso mac and cheese.
Because I say so.
Well said, sir. They're open Thursday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until they're sold out. Online ordering turns off at 10 a.m., and you can check them out at 1775txbbq.com or call them up, 979-492-6241.
You keep throwing me these curveballs,
As a reminder, the final segment of the program is brought to you by Double Dave's. That's at 10:50. But right now, caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We're going to hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's. They've been around Aggieland since 1984 with your favorite pizza. And, of course, those world-famous pepperoni rolls, reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com, and your favorites are on their way. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Rollo Insurance Studio, the Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center, OB, because Ava's got a couple text messages that came in.
All right.
John from Fort Worth says,
Hi, John.
Yes, hi, John. He's a class of 88.
Okay.
When talking about what gains Marcello Reed needs to make, we also need to recognize that the gains Colin Clean needs to make as a play caller for his QB. The right play is not a good call if your QB cannot execute it. I want to see Clean scheme and call the game more to Marcel's strengths.
So,
okay.
There were times last year that I didn't love the play calling.
Look, Colin Klein can be better.
Yeah.
And he's got, but there were enough plays called that
were there.
And again, I'll give Marcel grace because he was a first-year starter that didn't even enter the season projected to be the starter. And you gotta understand the difference when you're going through an offseason thinking you're the backup as opposed to the offseason knowing you're the starter.
Well, and also completely different quarterback than Connor Wigman.
Right. And so at first they were just trying to get through a couple of games.
Yeah.
And then he became, and remember, everybody, when Connor got healthy, he became the starting quarterback again, and Marcel's back on the bench, and then he gets thrust back in. And it's not like you had tons of time to develop what you want to do to fit Marcel's skill set.
I think we love the play calling against LSU.
Yeah, but you know what was even better was just the execution. Remember the last, I think it was the last touchdown, Marcel, and it's the zone read, and I think it's the Le'Veon, I think. And the Savion Jones, maybe the defensive end, just crushes the running back. I think it's and Marcel just takes the ball back. Perfect zone read, runs right through the You know, you can't do it better than that.
Let's continue down the quarterback path because Marcus Freeman made a quote this week that caught my attention. Okay. And I don't think we need to overanalyze this quote, but I think it just tells you where I think they are. Because it could be similar to Texas. Marcus Freeman says, from last year, I should say, you could see a two-quarterback system in 25. You're going to look for any way to help your team win. If that means you use two quarterbacks for certain situations, then you're going to find a way to use two quarterbacks. There might be two QBs on the field at the same time. Who knows? Creativity is so important. We have some creative football. You're going to have one starter. You're going to have one guy that's going to be your quarterback. But I can see us using both quarterbacks to find a way to help us to win. Okay.
You do whatever it takes. But if you're almost, he says we're going to have one starter, but if they're playing close to 50%, I think that's counterproductive. Now, if you use a guy
in certain situations, like Arch last year, like
Tim Tebow's freshman year, you know, I got specific packages, play packages for this guy. Yeah, then I think that can be very successful. In fact, one of the things I don't understand is why college coaches don't play their backups a little bit more. I mean, like one meaningful series a game, because college quarterbacks get hurt so much now, especially here. When I put in a new quarterback, I don't want him to be, going in completely, hey, I've never had this experience before, so I'm starting to square one.
Yeah. By the way, it's C.J. Carr and Kenny Minchey that are the top two quarterbacks in that situation. I don't know enough.
I think they've thrown one collegiate pass between them.
And by the way, when Billy's on the show later, we're going to talk a little bit about, because there was this rankings of SEC quarterbacks, and there's a new quarterback ranking every week, so it's not anything new. But when you look at the SEC quarterbacks, and I know Notre Dame's not an SEC team, but when you look at SEC quarterbacks, there's not a lot of experience.
I know.
And there's not a lot of experience at A&M opponents.
Yeah, Matthew Dawson sent me somebody, I can't remember who it was, but somebody's quarterback rankings. And look, I'm not going to say Arch Manning's not going to be good, but this guy had the number one quarterback. And I'm like, did you not see Lenore Sellers play last year? Or even for that matter, I know he throws too many interceptions, but Nussmeier.
Yep.
And I think he's just basing too much on somebody's name. Again, I'm not saying he's not going to be good, but if he was that great, why didn't he start last year?
Well, just looking at
I just judged on things on what I've seen you play against SEC competition.
Okay, so A&M schedule, we already talked Notre Dame, Auburn, Jackson Arnold, Mississippi State, Blake Shapen. He didn't play last year. Florida, Lagway might be the highest, but limited playing, right? Mm-hmm. Just like Marcello. If you want,
they're pretty much statistically the same guy. Marcello actually put together better numbers.
Taylor Green.
He's a good quarterback. He's not great. He's a good quarterback.
Nussmeier, the most starts of the group so far.
Nussmeier's only if Nussmeier can cut his interceptions in half, he's a Heisman candidate.
Missouri, they got a new quarterback. Pibula, is that how you say it?
Yeah, he's from Penn State, right? Yeah.
South Carolina, I think we all think Lenore Sellers. Yeah. From an experience standpoint, he and Nuss are among the best, and then Arch, right? Arch is limited, very limited. So A&M's opponents, a lot of those QBs, not a lot of experience. So when you see these lists, they are based on projections of what I think they could be based on their hype.
Right. And I just, Arch may be the best quarterback. I've seen some people have already written and said that he's going to be the Heisman Trophy favorite. I'm like, are you basing that on coming in and running for a touchdown on one snap or 2 or 3 snaps against A&M? Are you basing it on that game against? He started 2 games last year when one game he played really well, and one game he had
a couple of picks, right?
Yeah, and then he didn't play well when he came in against Georgia.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, why are you projecting to be that good? It's almost unfair to Arch.
Yeah. All right, let's do this. Let's hit a break, and we'll come back. Brandon Marcello, who is a college football reporter for CBS Sports and 247. We'll talk to him about all things happening in the world of college football right now. Aggieland, Comcast is coming. Xfinity and Comcast Business are expanding into the Bryan College Station market, bringing cutting-edge fiber internet to 70,000 homes and businesses. Whether it's streaming your favorite team, gaming, or growing your business, Comcast's ultra-fast and secure network is built for you. They've got multi-gigabyte speeds and unmatched reliability. This expansion is a game changer for the market. Businesses are going to thrive. Students will have seamless access to online learning. And most importantly, sports fans can enjoy crystal clear entertainment without interruptions. And it is just the beginning. Comcast is also building a new tech hub, rolling out 1,000 miles of fiber and opening a state-of-the-art Xfinity retail store. This investment strengthens the local economy, provides new opportunities, and make sure everyone in Aggieland has access to the connectivity they deserve. Stay tuned, Aggieland. The future is fast. Learn more at ComcastTexas.com/BCS. Let's talk a little Snaps clothing. David Nuño here, and I love wearing Snaps clothing everywhere. I've got the flannel on right now. You've seen me in the Tailgater collection with the A&M gear. It is fantastic. If you see me around town with my sons, Christian and Cruz, they've got a bunch of Snaps gear. When they have big games for Consol, they wear nice clothes, so they wear their Snap stuff. And I'm telling you, with baseball season here, let's all kind of go looking stylish and fit to the games there at Olson wearing the Snaps clothing. As a reminder, they are the only official licensed Texas A&M Pearl Snaps maker out there. Their Tailgater collection is built for game day with breathable, moisture-wicking fabrics to keep you comfortable while you rep your Aggies in style. Now, whether you're watching the game from home or maybe you're in attendance, you're tailgating, whatever it may be, you got to make sure you head to snapsclothing.com to see everything they have to offer. It is fashionable, it is awesome, and you're going to love it. All right, we're back on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It's the Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Let's go to the Butt Beats Catering Hotline. Brandon Marcello joining us from CBS Sports and 247 Sports. And there's a lot of big storylines in college football that I want to talk about, just like where the playoffs are going, the SEC 9 games, yada, yada, yada. I know he was in Destin last week. But let's start off with A&M talk. Brandon, good morning, buddy.
Good morning. What's going on?
Hey, so where are you with A&M this year? And maybe where are you on A&M over the next couple years with Mike Elko being the man? Last year, so much promise up until November. We all know what happened after that. Just where are you right now on them?
I'm about where I was even back in January. Not much has changed. I still think they're probably going to be like maybe an 8-win team this year, maybe a 9-win team, depending on how everything breaks in the SEC this year. Some other teams I'm really high on. I like the talent that's returning. I do want to see a bit more depth, but I really like Mike Elko, the way he builds programs. I think by the time you get to year 3, year 4 at A&M, you're going to get a very good gauge on what you can expect from Mike Elko, even going into a year 6 or year 7, if you were to stay around that long at Texas A&M. Again, everybody wants to win championships and everything, but if you can just get yourself in the playoff and get hot at the right moment, that's what matters. And I know last year we didn't necessarily see that in the playoff, but I do think we did see it a little bit from Ohio State, even though they're the most talented roster in college football. The way they ended this season and then getting on a run and just blowing everybody out practically in the playoff, you're going to see some teams in this new era, especially as we get to 16 teams, that just get hot at the right time. And as long as you get in the playoff and you hit the right boxes there in December, you can make a run. And so I think fans in a lot of ways across college football, we're still kind of tweaking expectations, what we should be looking for is in terms as a success. And a success moving forward, getting into the playoff, 9 or maybe 10 wins is going to be enough nowadays to get in. And if you get hot and you make it to the semifinals, that's an incredible run.
Brandon, Olin Buchanan here. You said that you have some teams in the SEC that you are high on. I think almost everybody's always going to say Georgia, Alabama, Texas. Anybody else on your list that you're particularly high on, and why?
LSU to a certain extent, because they're just so talented going into this year. You got Garrett Nussmeier coming back at quarterback. I'm really kind of high on them. I'd be higher on Florida if they just didn't continue to have the schedule they had on the back half of the schedule. DJ Lagway, the big key for them is him staying healthy. When I see someone get hampered by a couple different injuries in one season at a skill position, fair or not, I automatically just go, well, they're probably going to be an injury-prone player for the rest of their career. And at some point, he's probably going to miss a game or two for Florida. I think he's dynamic. He could be one of the best 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the nation, but he's got to stay healthy to do so. And I think he's enough with that offensive line they've built around him that I think is really deep and really good for them. Florida could be a team that, they might win 8 games this year, but you put them in any other league, they may have won 10 or 11. Just based off of what Lagway can do and just how deep they are along that offensive line. So I'm kind of high on Florida, even though the record at the end of the season might not show it.
So we were in the previous segment kind of going through SEC quarterbacks, and I don't think the SEC has a quarterback problem, but they have a veteran problem at that spot, right? You look around the league, there's not a lot of experience. Nussmeier, you mentioned. There's others, Lenore Sellers, obviously. But so when you think about that, how wide open does that potentially make the SEC? Because we just don't know what Arch is going to be. We don't know what Jackson Arnold is going to be at Auburn. We don't know a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent. I also kind of have a big wonder about Gunnar Stockton at Georgia. When we saw him in a couple of games last season, I think he's kind of a gamer and can be someone that can kind of grind his way to a win if he has to for Georgia. I think he's very, very much a guy who's willing to take the hits. I was there at the Sugar Bowl, and some of the throws he was even able to get off against that Notre Dame rush surprised me. So that kind of stacks up well for them, but I want to see that extended action week to week. And it goes along with your point of you just don't quite know what to expect from everybody week to week. And I know everybody's on the Arch Manning hype train. I'm on it as he's a great quarterback because I think we've seen enough of him in extended action to know that he's going to be a really, really good quarterback. But as you guys know, there's a difference between being a great quarterback and being an elite quarterback. An elite quarterback is great every single week. And we need to see that in a 3-week stretch, a 4-week stretch at Texas. But he's got enough weapons around him. And I think with Steve Sarkisian, he's finally going to be able to do some of the things in that offense he wants to do instead of just running screens all the time with Quinn Ewers, who I don't think, trusted as much as he should have as a passer. I mean, heck, even look at Arkansas. Taylon Green, a second-year starter in that offense. You know he's going to put up numbers, but does that mean that he's going to lead them to big wins? No, we didn't see it last year either. And I think there is a quarterback problem in the SEC as far as from the middle of the pack down. I mean, Kentucky has just had an absolute just like identity crisis offensively because they can't figure out their quarterback situation. And they keep going to the portal these last 3 years, hoping that'd be a quick fix. I wonder if that's going to be a situation maybe for Auburn. I mean, they're looking for a quick fix right now, and what their hope was that by this time in the Hugh Freeze era, year 3 or maybe even a year 4, they would have someone that would have grown up in their system and end up taking up as a starter. That hasn't happened. They had to go to the transfer portal again to get Jackson Arnold, who struggled at times there at OU. How's he going to do in a new system at Auburn? I think a lot of people think Auburn's going to be better this year, but just the idea that Hugh Freeze has had to go with transfer after transfer and switching up the starting quarterbacks at Auburn makes me worry just about the consistency there.
Who's the surprise team, do you think, or project could be in the SEC on that team that's going to exceed expectations?
You know, it's hard to say as far as because I haven't even looked at win totals and all like that. And I think Florida's probably about where they should be when that. But I think they're going to still be one of the more talented teams, one of the maybe top 4 teams when you actually look at them on paper. But their schedule is just very difficult. I think a team that's actually going to be one that maybe a lot of people think was going to take a step back because he's gone was Nico Iamaleava. With him being gone from Tennessee, I think they're going to be just fine offensively with Joey Aguilar at quarterback. I don't think we're going to have a team in the SEC that just all of a sudden pops out of nowhere this year. I don't see it. Like someone jumping into the top 3 or top 4. I think it's boring to say, but the top 3 or top 4 in the SEC that everybody kind of just assumes, that's going to be your top 3 or 4 this year. And I think everybody else is going to be playing catch up.
Brandon, help us understand the latest with the House settlement. I know that Judge Wilkins yesterday proposed the order is going to extend the deadline, and I guess that means that there's going to be to give them enough time to kind of process the information and make sure that there's not other things that can pop up to derail it even more. But I feel like this has been delayed so long that who knows?
Yeah, it's anybody's guess right now. I was talking to some folks very close and actively involved in this House settlement. And there's so many lawyers involved. Their take on it was she's taking her time to write an order that approves the settlement and that is as appeal proof as possible. Something because this is kind of something that's going to solidify her legacy. She's about to retire. Because if she denies the settlement, you can't appeal that, obviously. So the thinking and the hope among those is that she's just writing an order that's very strongly worded. She kind of dots her I's and dots her T's that makes this more appeal proof. But it's probably going to be appealed somehow, some way by someone. Someone's going to be suing someone anyway. It's anybody's guess. The hope was that this would be done within 2 weeks. We've obviously sailed by that. And here we are less than a month away from this being enacted, if it is passed and approved. And you've got athletic directors everywhere just kind of scrambling anyway. But, even if she doesn't approve this, I don't think it actually matters that much. You're going to see a lot of schools move ahead with this. Maybe not doing the roster limit stuff, but they're going to be paying the players anyway. They've been working with their states to get that stuff passed. So at this point, I think everybody's anxious about it, but I wouldn't be because I think college football is moving that direction anyway. A lot of schools are going to do that. The problem is this settlement would allow some guardrails to come in and allows the power conferences to set up their own organization to police things. That would have corralled a lot of issues and made it a little bit more simpler. That wouldn't happen if it's not approved. And I think that's what's most concerning to the athletic directors out there.
Brandon and Destin, A lot of talk from Greg Sankey about the playoff moving forward, and should the SEC, they obviously want 4 teams in, automatic bids, because in their mind they're playing such a more challenging conference schedule that they want to get 4 teams in or don't want to move forward until they find out what's the strength of schedule component going to be in all this, deciding the field. What's your thoughts on that? Is the SEC grandstanding a little bit, or do they have a legitimate case?
I think that in a lot of ways, Greg Sankey is a victim of being a little bit too diplomatic, even within his own conference with his athletic directors. He's acting like a state representative. He's sitting there going, "What do you guys want? What do you ADs want? Tell me. I'm not really going to share my thoughts. You guys just tell me what you want." And the problem with that is that you get yourself into these type of situations where all of a sudden the tide changes a little bit, and it maybe makes you look like it as a commissioner that you're not necessarily telling them what to do, which can be a good thing. But listen, for 3 years now, we've been discussing where the SEC is going to go to 8 to 9 games, and I understand the issues and the challenges and all that, but they've been hemming and hawing for 3 years on this for various reasons. At first, it was obviously strength of schedule. Then it was like, are we going to get enough money if we go to 9 games from ESPN? And then now it's about college football playoff format. Maybe it's contingent on that. I think what not necessarily surprising, but the kind of thing that happened here was last week we went into the spring meetings knowing and reporting that the athletic directors in the SEC and the athletic directors in the Big Ten were on the same page. They wanted 4 automatic qualifiers in the new CFP. Well, the problem is that you get the coaches in a room. The coaches almost always, in a lot of ways, when it comes to what's happening on the field, are going to differ from their athletic directors. And so that happened. It was very public. They came out of that room, and the coach was like, "We don't want this. Let's put as many as we can in there. Let's go 5-11. Let's do all these to get rid of these automatic qualifiers." So it forces the ADs to have to listen to them as their constituents. And then, of course, they have Greg Sankey on the side, who's not necessarily voicing what he wants to everybody in the room among his athletic directors and presidents, going, "Okay, well, let's weigh this. Let's discuss all this." Because also remember, guys, everybody out there assumes that the Big Ten SEC can just throw down the throat of the rest of the conferences what we want. But maybe what the SEC really wants is not the 4AQ thing. They want to stuff the ballots, so to speak. They want to get as many teams in as possible. And the way to do that is by not having a lot of automatic qualifiers. But the ADs in the SEC say, let's do the 4AQs, because we do that, we get more money from potentially scheduling play-in playoff games and creating this new TV product. And that's something that, as an AD, helps keep your job, because you're getting more money into your school's pockets. So what you got here is a lot of just discussion. Everybody's going to have varying opinions, but the commissioner, Greg Sankey, for better or worse, is just not the type of guy that goes in that room and go, "Here's what I want. Here's what we're going to do. This is what makes sense for the SEC." He's leaving it up to them, and he just provides the feedback whenever they need it. We're moving toward this not being a 4AQ system, because the tide has certainly shifted, and I think it's because not everybody's on the same page in the SEC, and you don't have a commissioner there that's telling everybody what to do. And for better or worse, that's just the way he is.
Hey, great stuff, Brandon. Appreciate your time, brother.
All right, see you guys.
See you, man. Brandon Marcello from CBS Sports on the Buffy's Catering Hotline. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with a couple text messages. Right now, if your organization or business is looking for an opportunity to engage with Aggies, you need to check out the Association of Former Students. They bring Aggies of all ages together during marquee events held throughout the year. We're talking about Aggie Ring Day, All Aggie Hullabaloo, The Gathering. They all welcome tens of thousands of guests, and there are many sponsorship and vendor opportunities to get your brand in front of those attendees. And these events offer a wide variety of both digital and in-person options to promote your brands. Also, title sponsorship, naming, on-site presence, activation, recognition, social media posts, and much, much more. There's also advertising opportunities in the Texas Aggie Magazine and the Aggie News newsletter, which are seen by over 230,000 people. So if your business is ready to engage with Aggies, choose a partner with the organization that's been supporting the Aggie Network for over 140 years. For more information on options available through the association, please email sponsorships@aggienetwork.com. We're back on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. The Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. We go back to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Ava, some texts coming in.
Yes, a text from Coach Mike. It says, is it a coincidence that the defensive collapse over the last 3 games happened after Moss was injured? Don't underestimate the impact on the defense of a strong running game.
I don't think the collapse of the defense happened at the end of the season. I think it was held throughout.
I think they still ran pretty well. Not as well as with Moss, but I think Amari went in there and did a pretty good job.
Now, ball control, 4th and 1s, yes.
Yeah, except you look at the Auburn game. Auburn scored like 21 points the first quarter.
Yeah.
So, the ball control over the course of the game really didn't matter there.
And look, you got to look at the totality of a game, but you look at the defense against LSU, first half, terrible, although they didn't score a lot of points, but they moved the ball. Texas was able to move the ball quite a bit, even though it didn't equate points. So at the end of the day, if you can keep your defense or your opponents to 17, 21 points, you can win a lot of those games.
You should win.
Yep. OB, thank you very much, buddy. Yep. When we come back, the voice of the Aggies, Andrew Monaco, on a bunch of different stuff. That and more. You're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Hey everyone, David Nuño and Olin Buchanan and OB. Typically, we start off the show in this section, and we call it the Holistic Planning Cool
The cool zone, yeah. It's pretty cool.
What do we know about holistic planning?
Well, a lot of cool stuff. For instance, holistic planning can help you with your investments.
I love that.
They can help you with your taxes. So
I don't like paying taxes.
You can get that money from your investments and they keep it. They'll help you keep it away from the government.
Yep.
Not all of it, but more of it. And then they'll even help you with your estate planning. When you're old like me, you got to make sure some of that money you made is there for when you want to retire and just enjoy the rest of your life.
You want your estate to be planned, but they also do something else.
Yeah. Well, if you are like, say, a sports fan and you've always wanted to,
everybody watching us, right?
Yeah. And you want to. Always dreamed of being an owner? Well, in a certain way you can, because they will broker the deal for you to invest in pro sports.
Yeah, what you need to do is check out investinprosports.com. That's where you can get all the information if you want to invest in a team. I don't know what team. He'd probably try to buy the Cowboys. I'd try to buy a lot of the Houston teams. Whatever it may be, investinprosports.com. It is holistic planning, and we love hanging out at the Holistic Planning Cool Zone. And we're back, TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. This segment is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. We've got the voice of the Aggies here in the house, Andrew Monaco, my friend. How are you, sir?
I am great. Thank you for having me.
Just dudes being dudes talking about makeup.
That's exactly right. Yeah, awful lot of it from my old TV days. Yeah.
We were just joking about having to go buy makeup when you're in the TV industry. It's a thing, guys.
He's a big wig, though. You actually got made up in the studio.
No. I mean, only once or twice they did it for me, but they did want me to cover up my beard.
I had one broadcast, David, where they sent me to makeup, and I swear it was with a power painter.
Yes.
That's a different feeling, man.
So when I actually had this is not a humble brag, but when I had an audition with ESPN, I didn't get the gig, by the way, so that's why it's not a humble brag. They used this like it was a blowtorch, and it was like, and my jaw's shaking, and it was like a dark color, like that's not my skin.
Different.
What are we doing,
Just
bro?
Different. Yeah. Makes you rethink things.
Let's get back to sports,
sure.
shall we?
You never thought it was going to go in this direction.
No, I did,
did
but
you?
I like when it goes in these directions. All right, the return of Michael Early.
Yep.
I want to know why this is a good move and why it makes sense.
It's a good move because I think Michael is invested. I think Michael also understands, okay, what went wrong in year one, and I think one thing that he may have had to tell Trev is this is what's going to be different in year two. The one thing that I have read, and I understand when people say this, is would there have been another? Let me rewind. My problem a little bit in the SEC was I thought Michael was treated by umpires as a first-year head coach and not as a head coach.
Yeah.
And there's a difference there. I didn't like that. I think he earns the respect of being the head coach of Texas A&M. What do you do differently in year two? What works, you continue with. What doesn't? Do you see the growth? Do you see the development? What some people are saying, well, he inherited a number one team. He shouldn't have been 30-26. Yes, he inherited the number one team, and they should have been the preseason number one. But you can't take 2 first-round picks out of your lineup for the majority of the season and expect to be automatically in Omaha. And then you look and see, okay, how do you work around all of that? Do you pity and say, well, season's over? No, because if they don't go out, and this is the other thing, we're going to see another offseason of Michael, the recruiter, and what he's going to bring to Texas A&M. But if you don't go get Wyatt Hensler, then where are you? If you don't go get Ben Royo, then where are you? If you don't identify Terrence Keele II as a player who wasn't supposed to, we all said this, wasn't supposed to, but seasons dictate what you do, not what you want to do. What was it? 50 at-bats, maybe a pinch runner, play on a Tuesday. That all went out the window. Now, how much did you accelerate his growth? You just can't. David, the other thing is, if you got rid of Michael, what's that say to the other coaches about the A&M job? Like, do you take it? Do you have just a 1-year lifespan?
Sure.
Do I have to do it all there? I just think, look, what he said to you last year to get the job, to Trev, to General Welsh, I think still applies. And I think it's the same blue-collar, cop's son mentality of I'm going to make this work, but not being so stubborn that I'm going to do it the same way next year. No, because you could see how he adapted, how that staff adapted throughout the season. I think he's the right guy at the right time for this team, and I think these players are a little disappointed because they went to bat for him. It didn't come through. There was that disappointment. What Jace said at the SEC tournament rings so true. Father figure, run through the wall. Well, guess what? When you break your ring finger, you get surgery, and you play, that's the wall.
Yeah.
That's the wall. Everybody talks about it. We think it's a cliche. That was the wall that Jace ran through for his head coach.
I think people need the definitive take. Look, I'm going to be 100% transparent. I would have understood had they moved on. I also understand why they give him another chance. If you hire him and you know that his story is first-year head coach, to me, there is a little bit more room, no matter who you hire.
Right.
So if you move on from him this year, unless you're getting, I'm just going to throw a Vitello-esque name.
Sure.
You've got questions regardless. Even Vitello would have questions coming here after the year we had. So I like the guy. That buys him time with me. I think the players like him, love him. That buys time. I want to see what he does in year two. But I also would have understood whatever direction they went.
Sure, and I think you make a good point. If someone from the outside comes in, then this era of Aggie baseball is gone because I think the players are gone. Now, that's not to say that new guy can't bring in talent. You're going to see Brian O'Connor do that, and Mississippi State will have a very Virginia look. He's going to bring in players. But that's what would happen. And for better or for worse, look, that's the era we're in 2025 in sports. With the transfer portal and being able to move, I just don't think there's a guarantee out there. You went through the coaching search last year. Was there someone out there that you feel like you missed on? Is there someone that's now out there? And look, I think the difference now in hiring coaches is we all think about, oh, this coach is now on the sidelines, is looking to get back in. I think when it comes to the coaching search, it's sitting coaches. Any sport. I'm not talking just baseball. It's something like that. So, no, like I said, I just think he's the right guy. And I think you could see some of that development by the team by the end. Were they playing some of their best baseball in the SEC tournament? Yeah. Could you see that turning point for that bullpen towards the end? Yeah, I thought they were spectacular. You had a starting staff that was solid for the most part of the season. I think there are building blocks, but David, I just can't get past that Gavin Grahovac played 6 games and Caden Sorrell played half a season. And if you double Caden's numbers, 25 home runs, how many RBIs is that? You're talking about all SEC and one of the players in the nation. That was hard to overcome, and yet they did by putting players in there who also were able to develop. And instead of saying, man, this is too hard, I quit, how can we do this? At no point did Michael ever say, man, no break. I joked with him one time. I said, did you tick off a baseball god somewhere? But you could see, and I think what you said, the important part of the players love him, I think that matters also in 2025. I think they should have a say and a stake in the team. I really do.
So let's turn the page to basketball for a moment because you got Bucky, also a young head coach, but he's been a head coach.
Right.
His ability to go get guys. Look, I haven't watched all these guys play extensive. I haven't, right? I focus on A&M and the SEC. But you look at the numbers that these guys have done at their previous spots and the quality of programs that they're coming from previous spots. He's given me this like hope vibe because right before they hired him and when they hired him, I looked at them as an expansion team. They're all gone.
That's a good analogy.
Right? So you got to go draft Tony Baselli, right?
It's Christopher McDermott.
Yeah.
And who knows?
Exactly. And now you bring in guys, I don't know how it's going to work, right? How all these ingredients are going to work together. But sitting here in June, I'm like, dude, they may be kind of good.
I think they can compete. Yeah. That's how good I think. I think you said something that is really interesting and I think is spot on. I think it's important to see where they came from and who they played for. I think that says an awful lot. We sometimes focus on just numbers in the portal, but I think how do they play and does it fit? I think there's also something exciting about this team will now grow together. Now, he might have to do this a couple of times.
Yeah.
And then start adding in
his guys.
Right. I think the one thing that Buzz did very well in the past was he brought in guys who were here for a long time. Henry was here for 3 years, right? And you had Manny, who came from high school, was able to play. Wade was here. There was a coaching change, and Wade still stayed. But even in the portal, you had guys who were going to be here for a while. This might be a little more short-term, but you're seeing someone right off the bat who can adapt. But I think that's kind of exciting in that, oh, my gosh, this is a blank slate, and this is who I get to pick, put together, play with. You make a really good point, though, about where they were. I think that has to say an awful lot about who these players are.
Well, I'm going to give you some of the places, right? So we can just kind of, let it sink in. Pop Isaac played at Creighton last year.
Pop wanted to come here twice. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, good. Tell me more.
Pop wanted to play at A&M. And I guess Buzz and the staff twice said no. So when we played Creighton in Las Vegas, all I was hearing was Pop wants to go off against Texas A&M.
Oh, wow.
So
I didn't know this.
So now Pop is here. Again, a little bit of, I'm going to show you what I can. I know it's not the same staff, but it makes it interesting that a couple times. And that's the other, sometimes an underlying story for some players.
Mbako, Indiana, and before, Rashawn Agee, USC, Rylan Griffin, Kansas, Alabama, Federico, Texas Tech, Marcus Hill, NC State, Chikari Lane, North Alabama, Zach Clements, Kansas. You've got Jamie Vincent, Texas, Josh Holloway, Samford coming from with Bucky. These guys are coming from places that have played high-level basketball.
That's I think a big thing, and that's I think the transition to the SEC and how the SEC has been. There's been so much talk in the conference about how teams are investing in basketball now in the SEC, and you talk about the coaches who are in the SEC, and sometimes we forget the talent that is in the SEC, and you better have it. So Rylan Griffin, right? Alabama, Kansas, winning programs, right? And especially someone who was at Alabama, Nate Oates. Oh, that's right. Bucky was in Alabama and saw that, but he's also a Texas kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's those things. Winning programs or have been winners. Can you make the step from North Alabama to A&M? We've seen plenty of that throughout college basketball. Yeah. Mbako, it probably had a very difficult decision because he was turning heads in the NBA. But if you're not one of the 60 who are going to be picked in those 2 rounds, then you do come back.
Sure.
And it's a little different from baseball to get into the minors and you get the side. With basketball, it's a little tougher. Like we're seeing Quentin Jackson and how it has paid off for him. Look, even Alex Caruso went through the G League and it has paid off. But that is a tougher road at times. You just don't want to rush to be a pro because it's so difficult. Come back for one more year and then you become one of those 60 in the next draft. But you make a really good point. The lineage for those guys, where they've played, the minutes that they've played, the competition that they've played. Like Pharrell Payne, when he played here, I asked him, what's the difference you're seeing in the SEC and the Big Ten? When he was at Minnesota, he said the speed.
Yeah.
These guys are playing on programs that either dictate that pace or they've played against teams like that.
Back to baseball for a moment, and I'll react. You don't have to react. But Michael on the YouTube page says, how did the baseball team last season lose Montgomery and Sadeo in the playoffs but still make the College World Series and didn't make excuses? Other players stepped up and coaches coached them up. Couple things there. I don't think we're giving excuses. We're giving, maybe they are excuses.
Shorter span.
But giving you examples of why it went a certain way. And year 1 of Michael Early is different than year 30 of Schloss.
I agree with that. And, you look at that. What would he have done in his first year at UNLV like that? What was Tony Vitello's first year at Tennessee? But you have to throw all the curveballs that you get. Look, and every coach gets that. And you know what? It is brand new. When I was with the Magic, Chuck Daly would always say to his assistant coaches who were constantly giving him advice, right? And he always said, this seat is a lot warmer than the one that you're sitting in.
Yeah.
And until you go through that. Shorter time frame, I would love to have played Tennessee with Braden Montgomery.
Yeah.
Would have loved to. I think that would have been a different series, to tell you the truth. Let's also not forget that we started Zane Bidmaev in Omaha. And I love Zane. And it's a kid who is absolutely appreciative. Would you rather have Sadeo going game 2 than that? Shorter time span. And even then it caught up to Texas A&M because now it's 1 versus 2. But 2 wasn't fully armed and still went to 3 games, right? If that season goes longer and longer, I don't know. I don't know. But it was such a longer season because that was a compressed time frame. Yes, you can get away, but you missed Braden Montgomery and you missed Shane Sadeo in there. The problem is you were missing the 2 guys that I mentioned in Gavin and Caden for almost the entire season.
Well, and I also want people to realize performance dictates tolerance, and there's a reason that Michael Early went into the office of Trev's office to talk about what next year could look like. It doesn't mean that we accept or are okay with the season by giving you reasons why things went
totally
south, right? Like it is, here's what happened, and here's maybe why, and he's got to fix it, or he will not be the head coach at Texas A&M, and he knows that.
I will even go as far and say that if he can't, he'll walk away and say, okay, it's someone else.
Yeah.
I think he is determined that he is going to fix it. And it's not going to be, look, if people expect this same team to run it back, that's not the way sports works any longer.
Right.
You're going to want to be stronger because, look, you are what your record is, right? You're 14th in the SEC. It's not good enough, right? It wasn't good enough. You're watching the regionals. You're not in them. What do you have to do differently? And that's going to be the recruiting trail and the transfer portal. And I think I'm learning more and more now, David, that player retention has to be step 1. So to see all these players say, no, I'm all in, that's big.
Yeah.
If they're all rushing for the gates,
it tells you something too.
I think it absolutely tells you something. Now, I'm not mad at any of the guys who are transferring. because if there are opportunities for them, I get it, because they gave everything while they are here. And someone's going to get some good players. But I think that player retention and those key players who are saying they're coming back, that's big.
We'll move on from that. But again, it doesn't mean we accept, or at least that I accept and I'm okay with it. No, I'm just telling you, this is where they are, this is where they're going, and I hope that they're able to take that step. But you made a comment there that caught my attention. Like, you can't always, and I'll phrase it in a Nuño way, copy and paste one season to the next.
Agreed.
Right? So football-wise.
Sure.
It is very talk show-esque to, well, last year they were bad at tackling and they were bad defensively, so let's copy and paste that into this year with this schedule, and this is what it spits out, this fake algorithm. The reality is, you've worked in sports long enough.
Yeah.
You can probably talk about your time with the Spurs and other places where you could look at one year with the same core group and it would spit out a different result the next year. Do you have examples of that, or maybe just give me a little bit of that?
Anytime, like when fans go, oh, where did that come from? When I call them the guys who are bubbling under, freshmen who become sophomores, those red shirts who have a year in a program, sometimes it's the maturity. Leon O'Neal Jr., if you take his first 2 years and his last 2 years, they're two different people.
Sure.
Maturity also kicks in. This is my biggest problem with preseason polls are basically looking at last year. And you can't possibly look ahead. Can you see some warning signs? Yeah,
sure.
I see that. But for A&M, the retention of an entire offensive line to bring back your running backs, and I mean all of them, and one of the best backs in the SEC is going to be healthy in Le'Veon Moss, and a potential best back in the SEC in Reuben Owens is now in your backfield. So how much does that help Marcel Reed? Mike Elko said this last week at the coaches' night in Austin, and he made a great point. Marcel Reed now knows what it is and what it takes to be an SEC quarterback. You don't know that going in. Now, it doesn't mean that he, like, to your point, is he going to be the same guy, and is he going to miss this throw, but is he going to make that throw? No. That's why I talk about the work in the dark. Are you going to be a little stronger? Are you going to work on the tackling technique? Are you going to work on catch radius? Are you going to work on all that kind of stuff? You see that? I think maturity more than anything, David, when we're talking 18 to 21, says an awful lot. And then there's that confidence of I can do this. Terry Bussey now knows he's got a position going forward. We weren't sure where he was going to play. And even Mike cautioned us last year, hey, don't put the entire season on a 17-year-old, right? That 17 is now 18 who's played in the SEC. You've got Mario Craver who's now in, and this was one of my favorite stories from Mike. He said, Will Lee's so glad that he's a teammate that he doesn't have to, play against him. Those types of dynamics. Once again, I think also with that player retention, David, is when guys want to stay and want to play with one another, I think they then up the ante. And we talk about standard and culture. They set those. You can say all you want from the top down. They set those. But I'm with you. When you watch development, you're not just the same guy as a freshman as you are as a senior, just like teams aren't the same in September. You hope that they're better in November and December, and if you're fortunate, in January. I think that growth absolutely comes, that it isn't just copy and paste. It's you're copying names, but you're not pasting the same performances from in the past.
Follow me on this final thought, because to me, a lot of it has to do with the last image we have of that team.
Agreed.
Right? So, and again, I use the word if because it didn't happen, so I have to use the word if. But if your defense in one of those games makes a stop at the end, at the end of Auburn before overtime, at the end of USC, right? And those are just two moments. If you convert on one of the 4th and 1s against Texas, I don't know if you win that game.
Right.
How different it. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you get one of those games, if you have one stop, how different we're looking at this season. Just one stop.
Agreed.
Even if it's the USC bowl game, the Las Vegas Bowl, it would feel different.
That if drives you into, then you take all the ifs from your neck. That's the worst thing you can be as an athlete, is say, what if? What if? And we've seen players like that. That guy's a what if. She's a what if. Man, if he would just know the playbook, if he would just, you know what I mean? Like you want to take all the ifs out. That's why you're going to lift one more rep, right? this offseason. That's what has to drive you, because you want to take all the ifs out this season. Every season's going to have the ifs, right? Yeah. But you want to take as many. I've always said this, David. In the past it would be, when a team plays to their strength, they're going to win. And I think that's true. How do you hide your flaws?
Yeah.
Whichever team hides their flaws the best or eliminates those flaws. And that, to your point, that lasting image, I think that's got to be the drive and why you want to be better coming out of that tunnel against UTSA in week 1.
I actually lied. I want to close out with this thought.
Okay. It's your show, baby.
How we look at A&M sports this past calendar year, okay? Because I think the way we've described it on the show, disappointing finishes, and what that could mean for 25.
I'll go with disappointing. And I think it's disappointing because we want it for those student athletes. Mm-hmm. That's what we want. What we miss, and don't mean to keep going back to Buzz. We lose to Tennessee at home in a morning-afternoon game. 6 is playing 7. And you're disappointed because you didn't come through in the last 4 minutes of that game. For 36 minutes, you're going toe-to-toe. Buzz sits down and he goes, man, that was a really great college basketball game. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we forget that, right? What we're watching. Like I want to be in a super regional right now, David. I want to be busy because we're planning to do that, but we are forgetting that. My good gosh, we're going to watch a top 10 pick play center field and bat every day. Like, we're forgetting the performances. We're disappointed because we want to be the best, and I never ever want that to change. But I want to be the best in the best A&M way, and not in some way where when someone says, oh, I like that player, you're cringing going, oh, he's not a good human, right? So that's the disappointment in that we invest so much. I get it. But let's not forget the performances and let's not just root for laundry, David. Let's root for the people who are in those jerseys. Let's not forget what Trisha Ford is building here. And yes, we're disappointed here, but does it pay off somewhere? And you hate the way the football season ended, but trust Mike Elko, trust Michael Early, trust what Bucky's about to build, trust what Joni's going to do in this offseason. I'm missing a lot of people. Look what track now is paying off under Pat Henry. That kind of trust. If we're just rooting for laundry, then we're like everybody else in the country and in sports. Always think it means a little more. Not that we can't be disappointed, but we can't forget the performances, what's being built, what we're watching, and the student athletes who are here are investing their time here at Texas A&M.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
Appreciate my friend.
Yep. We'll hit a break here. We'll come back with an open segment before we talk to Boomer White about some Aggie baseball. Right now, a moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell, online at caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. There's buying a car at some places, then there's the Caldwell Country experience. It's different. They have a strong and committed sales staff with many years of experience in this market, giving great deals, and that's what they do. They want to give you a great deal on your new vehicle, also great trade-in value, and then, of course, that world-class customer service, which includes a free oil change for life as long as you own that vehicle from Caldwell Country Chevrolet. They have complimentary pickup and delivery for their service customers, and they treat every customer like family because family deserves the best, including all of their great services. Remember, it's about a 15-minute drive, the edge of Bryan to the beginnings of Caldwell. Short conversation away, which you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the great people at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. And we're back. It's TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. We're going to do Ags and the pros here in a second, but I want to read this message. It's not always negative, but it is. And Nature on the YouTube page says, good teams get that 4th and 1 and a crucial stop on that key turnover on a regular basis. Mediocre teams only do it occasionally, which is why they went 8-5. We're not disagreeing. I think it was from the last segment we were talking about the ifs about A&M football, which is why they went 8-5. That's exactly right. You're correct, but we're a talk show that examines things from multiple layers. And sometimes in those multiple layers, had they done this, had they done that? By the way, it works both ways. Sometimes in the wins, we've talked about in the Missouri game, guys, that they blew out Missouri. But there were a couple of plays in that game that would have made that game play out completely different. One of those was on the first drive that Missouri had, if you remember. There was a touchdown, was called back on a pass interference, and a drop pass that would have been a huge first down. I'm not saying the game doesn't go A&M's way. I'm just saying there's a lot of what-ifs that can go multiple ways. And with that, we begin Ags and the pros.
Well, let's just get started talking about some football players in the UFL. I mean, Leon O'Neal, nominee for Sportsman of the Year. Just good guy, good ethics right there from Leon O'Neal. The Roughnecks had a good stretch late in the season. They just won it again. They finished the season 5-5, but unfortunately they didn't make the playoffs because in the UFL it's only the top 4 teams. But we did sneak some Aggies into the playoffs. But there were some also notable performances. Kellen Mond got the start once again for the Brahmas, but they got stomped by the Fighting Jay Sternbergers.
What's their record? I feel like every time you talk about them,
they're like 2-8. Yeah,
that's not good.
They lost 46-6 this past week, which I think was the largest differential in a game all season long. So that was just a kind of.
That's on the defense. Like our glorious king, Kellen Mond, he did everything he could, but 46 points?
Yeah.
Come on, defense. Let's tighten up.
Well, Deshaun Corbin, he had 55 yards in that game. He earns all UFL honors. So does Leon O'Neal, and so does Anthony Hines. That's 3 former Texas A&M football players on the all-UFL team right there. In fact, Deshaun Corbin led the UFL in rushing yards, which is kind of crazy because the majority, like 90% of his rushing yards came like in the last 4 weeks of the season. Kind of exploded on the scene. Anthony McFarland kind of was dealing with shoulder issues, and he just stepped up in a big role for the Brahmas. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough for the victories to come out. Unfortunately, also, the Fighting Jim Turners of Memphis did not get a win, and they did not make the playoffs. But our playoff contenders, we got the Birmingham Stallions and the DC Defenders. So Jay Sternberger and Anthony Hines were not playing each other this week. They would meet in the championship if both of their teams won. So we'll see how Anthony Hines is going to do. He's been sitting out the last couple of weeks, but I think he should be good to go. Jay Sternberg had a really nice catch, 37 yards this past week. See if he can keep it rolling. But a lot of good stuff from Aggies over there in the UFL, to be honest.
The Stallions are going for the three-peat, and a league that you probably will not see a three-peat in for a long time is the NBA. Great segue, by the way, I must say. How about Alex Caruso and Quentin Jackson facing off for a ring? This is now going to be, I believe, the 4th time in potentially 6 seasons that an Aggie will win a ring in the NBA. So Caruso is back in his 2nd NBA Finals in 6 seasons, and Quentin Jackson is making his first appearance with the Pacers. So you are guaranteed to see at least one Gig'em with a ring on. And there was a fun video of Quentin Jackson with the Bob Cousy Trophy, the Eastern Conference Finals Trophy. It was on Instagram Live, just having a ball of a time. And I know he doesn't play, but he was an impact player on the G League squad. He played sparingly in NBA minutes, just no time during the playoffs, but he is still on the bench. He will win a ring if the Pacers are able to close it out. And what a great story for Quentin Jackson. I know Monaco was just talking about him and the journey that you have to get through going from the G League, going from undrafted to the G League, traded multiple times, and now he's got a chance to get some hardware, which is great for Quentin Jackson.
It's excellent for Quentin Jackson.
Yeah, and you know who else is another A&M basketball player that is having a phenomenal time? Is Anderson Garcia back home in the Dominican Republic. Yeah. Do you have any words for him in your native tongue?
Oye, Anderson, ¿cómo estamos? How are we doing?
Muy bien. He's been playing muy bien.
That was a really good accent, by the way.
Thanks. So Anderson Garcia is the front runner to win the Rookie of the Year trophy in the Dominican National Basketball League. Look at these numbers he's putting up. 15.7 points per game, 11 rebounds per game. You know he's going to rebound the ball. 5.5 assists per game, 1.5 steals, and 1.5 blocks per game. He's just been an absolute star in that league and may just wind up winning the Rookie of the Year trophy.
Good for him, man. Speaking of rookies, let's go to the NFL. Let's talk a little bit of Shamar Stewart, okay? Because we bring him up every single week. Still hasn't signed with the Bengals, but so have 7 players in the first round that were selected have not signed with their respective teams. So he's not the only one dealing with little contract stipulations, and it feels like they're arguing just over like a little bit of language that's not going to matter for a couple years. Like, get it done, Bengals. Get it done. And David, I got a question for you. Of the 7 players that have not signed contracts for their team that were selected in the first round, how many of those players do you think are SEC players?
3.
What if I told you it was 6?
It's
I don't
6
know.
of the 7. Wow.
6 of the 7. Now
But we only hear about 1.
You're only hearing about 1. You're not hearing about
Well,
Walter.
part of it's because we look for it because it's an A&M guy.
You're not hearing about Walter Nolan. You're not hearing about like Will Campbell. You're not hearing about Jahdae Barron. You're not hearing about Jihad Campbell. You're not hearing about those guys. Why are we hearing about Shamar Stewart?
Because it's the Bengals, right? And because of the way they do business.
That's true. I mean, there's some negative light being shown on both sides. Like the way that they're covering it, I just feel like it's a little bit unfair to Shamar Stewart. Even if some of the local beat writers are kind of dissing the management over there and the executives. But look, hopefully he gets that contract sorted out.
Yeah, I mean it is topical to diss A&M, but Shamar Stewart is trying to get what he's deserved, what he's owed.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll come back with Boomer White here on TexAgs. Right now, Ground Shutter offers a frequent and reliable shuttle from Bryan College Station to George Bush Intercontinental Airport. When you come, when you're trying to leave town, you're going on vacation, you've got a business trip, whatever it may be, that's fine. No big deal, right? You sometimes can go park at Bush, and if you want to, spend the $200 to park there for a few days, you want to get there late because of the traffic and the congestion and all the repairs that they're doing there, you can do that, or you can just have Ground Shuttle take care of you, take you right there, door to door. Boom, that's what they do. They've got 9 shuttle times every weekday, every hour and a half, and 5 shuttle times on weekends, every 2.5 hours. They're excellent for business travelers and commuters. You can book any vehicle in their fleet, by the way, to accommodate your charter service anywhere in Texas, door-to-door travel. It's an easy place to go. It's right there by Casa de Brazil. It is groundshuttle.com, the website, groundshuttle.com. Check it out. And we're back. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Puppies Catering Hotline. Boomer White joining us to talk a little Aggie baseball. Coach Early is coming back for another run, and I want to get Boomer's thoughts. Boomer, good morning, buddy.
Hey, good morning, David. How's it going?
Good, man. Hey, we had JB on yesterday. I'd love to get your perspective as well, because I think as former players, you can probably take us down a journey that we may not see. Your first thing, what did you think about that Trev Alberts is going to give another year for Coach Early to get this right?
I'm excited. One side of me is very excited. You can't help but see all the good things that are said about Coach Early by former players and everyone he interacts with on a day-to-day basis, and know that guy does things the right way. So one side of me is extremely excited to see him have another crack at this, even though it didn't go his way this year, and see what he does with hopefully a healthier team and more experience under his belt and a slightly different staff maybe. I'd say there is another side of me that, you get a little worried how Missouri went, and it's not, you can't base everything on one series, but that everything came, that was just the tip of the iceberg. Everything came, to a head that series. And I think that, here's my opinion. If A&M misses the postseason in a different fashion, I don't think there's like a huge question if Coach Early is back. I think the way it happened, how it all came, boiling up to one point, and then there was just a total, disaster of a series. I think that kind of made it like, hey, is this the guy? When something goes very poorly like this, can we bring the guy who runs the show back because of that? But I don't think it was missing the postseason that was an issue. So I think that the question is can you get over how that Missouri series really went and how we finished the series? And I can. But that's a long-winded way to say, yeah, I'm excited that he came back. I understand why there's questions, but I do believe from what I've seen in Coach Early.
So give us examples of why, just something about him that, like, you know what, I think it's going to work out.
I think it's the belief he instills in his players on a personal level. I don't think it's Coach Early is an extremely bright hitting mind. And I think that, I don't know what his role was in the offense this year. I don't know what his role in the offense will be next year, but I know that when he gets into one-on-one scenarios with his players, that they feel like mechanically and their approach is extremely advanced, and they're going to see, leaps and bounds of success after, working with him on a regular basis. But I'd say from a personal standpoint, and he kind of reminds me of Coach Rob Childress in a way, who I played under, is that, there is a personal interaction and a personal relationship there that really makes you want to go to battle for him and him go to battle for you. And it's not because he's a great coach and he tries super hard. It's that, no, he's instilled something deeper in the players that they love about him. And usually that translates to, more effort or more passion, or, they'll kind of do anything for your coach. And I think when you have a coach that'll do anything for their players and a player that'll do anything for their coach on the field and off the field, that's usually going to translate in a good way. And I think that that's what these guys have in Coach Early, along with the brilliance of his hitting mind. So both of those I think are great. And I think that that's plenty good enough for a successful head coach.
When you do a talk show, you get multiple opinions online that, some to support the decision, some to bash it. One of them that I'm hearing is we're making excuses for the injuries. And Boomer, look, the injuries are they an excuse? Sure, they can be an excuse. But I also don't think it gives you a complete pass, right? So just talk a little bit about how, injuries can derail a team and will derail most teams that have the kind of injuries that A&M had. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we accept what happened last year.
Yeah, I lean towards more of not making excuses on that. I think this team was plenty talented, plenty deep, experience and everything to overcome those injuries in a better way than they did. Now, was this team just as well equipped to go on an Omaha run? No, and I don't think anyone would argue that. So I don't think we have to accept what happened, from the standpoint of, hey, this would have happened regardless. of the injuries or not? No. But I do think that, there's enough damage that Gavin Grahovic and Caden Sorrell could have done in the times that they were missing that could have propelled this team to a better season. But I think without those guys, you hold yourself to the standard Texas A&M and A&M baseball does, that this team was definitely a regional team and probably a super regional or an Omaha team, just as they were. And we saw that periodically in different series. So I don't make excuses. No, I think they would have been limited in a deep run. Yes. But this team is plenty talented, in my opinion, to be a Final 16, Final 18.
Boomer, what do you think about the SEC in college baseball right now? 9 of the 13 teams are already eliminated.
I thought from the beginning this was more of an open season than I could ever remember. And I think A&M's a great example of that. I think Tennessee is a good example. Vanderbilt. I mean, you look at the runs that teams went on, at least within the SEC. Let's just talk SEC alone. You saw very, very volatile seasons for multiple teams. Unranked to ranked, number 1 in the country to unranked to almost unranked. And I think when you saw so many, other than Texas, who pretty much until the back end of the season really handled their business, everyone seemed to be prone to an upset or to a series loss or going on a run or going on a, anti-run where they just get knocked around for a little bit. And because of that, it doesn't really surprise me that much, to be honest. I do think the SEC is still the most powerful conference, but I think there was enough chinks in the armor through some of the major players in the SEC that they were prone to this. And I think we saw that early on, and there are a handful of examples within the conference that showed that.
Boomer, I appreciate it, man. I always love talking to you, man. Thanks for making a few minutes.
You got it, David. Have a great one. Talk to you later.
You too. Boomer White on the Buppies Catering Hotline. Appreciate his time. Look, I get the, excuse. Look, we're talking through things. And as we've said a few times on this show, like I would have understood had they moved on. I also understand why they give him another run. And I like the guy, and I hope it works out. I think that's what, even those that are angry about the decision, it's much better when they're winning, right? And it wasn't good enough, and it won't be good enough next year. So let's see how things evolve. When insurance matters most, who's going to answer your call? That's Rollo Insurance. They're awesome. They build lasting relationships through education, helping you understand what you're buying, and they do the shopping for you so that you can accomplish your insurance goals. They have expertise in everything from home to auto to business to specialty coverage. Their independent agents provide options tailored to your specific needs. They take time to explain those policies in plain language, ensuring that you're never left wondering about your coverage. This education approach empowers you to make the right decision, to be informed on all those decisions you have to make for your insurance situation. Many of their clients discover better protection at competitive rates just by understanding their options. Experience the difference, the Rollo difference it is. 60-plus Texas locations. Visit them at rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs. That is rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs. Or call them up, 888-44-ROLLO. That's 888-44-ROLLO.
What's up, TexAgs? This commercial break is brought to you by my good friends over at Aggieland Chevrolet, the official automotive sponsor of TexAgs.com and me, Billy Liucci. Greg Gunn is the proud owner of Aggieland Chevrolet and invites you to visit the dealership to experience true Aggie hospitality. From their friendly staff to the experienced service team, Aggieland Chevrolet is TexAgs approved. Check out the dealership off of Highway 6 in Bryan or go to AggielandChevrolet.com and tell them Billy Liucci sent you by.
TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. It's the final segment of the 9 o'clock hour. Billy should be joining us in the 10 o'clock hour. Looking forward to having Billy here in studio. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Ava got super chat for us.
Yes, Calvin asked, he says, why have QBs with such different skill sets? Run plays suited to the skill set of a QB or recruit QBs to fit your system. Got to be able to have a dual threat QBs for success in today, in my opinion. Marcello and Connor were so different. You have to change the play calling.
Yeah, look, a couple things about that. First off, I think you're talking about a coach who, what's the word I'm looking for here? He inherited this quarterback room, right? And regardless if he would have gone after those two guys or not, and I know that obviously Elko was on staff when they were recruiting Connor, but regardless of that, this is what you have in your room, and the leaders of that pack kind of come to the top, right? So that's part of the conversation. The other part is I'm glad they had different types of quarterbacks, because the LSU game might have felt completely different if we didn't have that skill set at the quarterback spot. So I think that all plays a part. I would like it to be more of a seamless transition from quarterback A to quarterback B. But guys, let's be 100% honest. Typically, when you get to your second quarterback, and last year, coming into the season, Connor Wickman, from all indications, had a wonderful fall camp and a great spring. Okay? It just didn't click when the season started. Some of that, I don't know if it was just, some of the injury. I think he's going to have a great year at Houston. I really do. I still think he could be a dynamic quarterback. But when you get to your second quarterback, oftentimes, and I'm sure there's a fact checker out there, and Luke can probably look this up, or somebody can look this up, I don't think you typically get better results from your backup unless, what we saw last year, your starting quarterback gets injured or just has a terrible season. But when you are to your second option, it's because something didn't work, and you have to make a change. And sometimes that change is a different style of quarterback. Luke, you got a thought on this?
Yeah, well, just a couple instances off the top of my head of when it did work out was a lot of times it's because of injury. Just Florida going to DJ Lagway. You think of teams that have been switching between quarterbacks. It often doesn't happen naturally, right? Like the switches between Marcel and Connor were because of acute injuries, and then in the LSU game, it was actually because of play. But Florida was a team that had to do it because of injury.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Mertz actually was not playing bad, but he's also a different type of quarterback than DJ Lagway. You get talent, and then you find a way to make it work, right? You look at A&M's quarterback room now. You've got different types of talent in that quarterback room, so that all plays a part in it. But an excellent question there from Calvin. All right, we're going to hit a break. When we come back, we'll do Around the SEC. Luke will give us some thoughts there. And we will also get to Billy Liucci here in studio. That and more, you are listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. And we're back. It's TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Should have Billy in studio 6 to 8 minutes is my guess on that. Right now it's time for Around the SEC, presented by the Jaxer Group. And with that, Luke Evangelos. Certainly, Luke is Luke. Luke, what do you have for us?
I've got a lot of stuff for y'all. So, David, first of all, I think a lot of people, there's a lot been made about the SEC and the dominance of the league and a couple sports this year. And when you really look at it, the SEC got 3 teams in the college football playoff. Only 1 made the Final Four and 0 were in the national championship. You then had the SEC breaking the record for most teams in March Madness ever with 13 teams, but only 1 made the Final Four and 0 were in the national championship. And then here we are in baseball season, the SEC again setting the record for the most teams in the postseason with 13. And yet here we are with just 16 teams remaining. And I only count 4 SEC teams making these super regionals. So we talk about SEC teams having dominant regular seasons. Auburn basketball being statistically one of the best regular season teams ever. Teams like Texas and Vanderbilt in baseball dominating their regular season. But when it comes to postseason, the SEC has had what I think a lot of people would quantify as a disappointing postseason as a whole from the league this year across the 3 major sports.
Yeah, I saw a stat recently of what Texas's record was baseball-wise since May 1st. I think it was like 6-10 or something. It was not good. I just saw it a few minutes ago on Twitter. So a couple things. When we talk about the perception of the SEC, in football, it has taken a hit because the Big Ten has, won the last 2 national championships. But how much of a hit? Look, you can only, if you don't win a championship, right? It's obviously it's still the most complete dominant league in sports, in my opinion, or in football and baseball and basketball, in my opinion, but football for sure. But it has taken a hit. Basketball-wise, you mentioned Auburn, but Florida did win the national championship, right? So they did win a national championship there. Baseball-wise, do you have the list of the super regionals, like where these SEC teams are playing? I think, Auburn and Coastal Carolina are playing, is that right?
Yeah, that's Auburn and Coastal Carolina, LSU hosting West Virginia, and then one that I think a lot of people are going to be interested in is Arkansas and Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm interested in that one. And I don't know if you saw that Tennessee game yesterday. That was quite dramatic. Some of the highlights and some of the sound from the dugouts, if you will. But I'm not going to get into that right now.
Yeah, we don't need to.
Yeah. But when you talk about the perception of the leagues, I think the SEC as a whole, I would believe they would say they've not had the calendar year that they expected in the Big 3. Okay.
Yeah, I totally brain farted. I'm just now realizing that I said there was no SEC team in the national championship in basketball. Florida did win the national championship.
I said that, yeah.
Yes, I totally brain farted. That is my sport, and that is a horrible look for me to have brain farted in that moment. But I think more so the depth of the league. People always talk about how deep the SEC is in every league, and that's a real regular season statistic, but we haven't really seen it play out with 6 teams in Omaha or 8 teams in the Sweet 16 in basketball. It's just not playing out depth-wise, but the top-end talent is certainly still there. I mean, Arkansas is now probably the favorite to win the national title in baseball. Florida won the national title in basketball. Texas was right there in football. So the top end is there, but the depth seems to be taking the most significant hit when it comes to the postseason.
Let's softball, you might have an SEC team win. Not going to say who, but you might have an SEC team win. Baseball, I think you're going to have an SEC team win, regardless of how many teams have been eliminated. I could be wrong there, but I think we will. And then how different is this conversation in a couple of weeks if that's the case, right? So it goes back to what you just said there, Luke, about football. And football didn't even make the national championship game this year, which is, with the extended playoffs. Now, had it been a 4-team playoff, who are the teams that are in the playoffs, Luke?
Probably looking at Texas.
Georgia.
Ohio. Is Ohio State getting in because they don't even make the Big Ten championship? It's probably Oregon. And, I mean, it would be a real tough case to leave out Penn State then with a close loss in the Big Ten championship.
Would Notre Dame, though?
But Notre Dame had that horrible loss to NIU. I feel like
That was their only loss, though, right?
I know, but I feel like the discussion would have been Penn State versus Notre Dame, and maybe they would throw Notre Dame in there just so it's not 2 SEC and 2 Big Ten. But there is certainly a discussion of the 4-team playoff leads to a totally different just feel to that playoff run. If you have a 4-team playoff compared to, I think what the right thing to do now is the natural seeding order of just 1, 2, 3, 4. But having those 4 automatic qualifiers just totally changed the feel of the bracket.
But in an extended playoff, which is what we have now in college football and is going to continue to get expanded, I wonder if having the gauntlet that is, and we're jumping around sports here, but for football at least, the gauntlet that is the SEC. And by the way, I don't think the SEC has been as dominant the last few years. Part of that is because Nick Saban is gone. That was just for one season. But even the last couple of years of Nick Saban, they weren't Georgia was dominant for sure, but there wasn't that part of having the Alabama teams that we're used to. I also think having a lack of divisions and the way, and I think I like the new format, but like Texas and Oklahoma do not know what life is like in what the SEC West was that A&M played in. By the way, A&M didn't do good enough in that world. I'm not saying like, and it's not a not both. Texas took advantage of a down season, of a down schedule, I should say, not season. They had a great season, but they took advantage of a very manageable schedule, and they did what they had to do. But when you talk about the gauntlet that is the SEC and what that does in an expanded playoff, right? I don't know if that's the best thing for these teams because you can use other sports. There was an era, and Luke, I think you were watching the NBA and the maybe you weren't watching it in the early 2000s, but the early 2000s, early 10s, where the West was so dominant that like every team in the playoff was a 50-win team, right? And there was a gauntlet to get. Hello, Billy. There was a gauntlet to get through, and teams would get very tired by the time they got to the NBA Finals. Same thing happening in college football with an expanded playoffs, having to go through the gauntlet that is the SEC. Anyway, we turn our attention to Billy Liucci. By the way, you have one upstairs, and here's the other one.
Thank you.
How are you?
This is mine?
Yeah.
Did you wash it?
No.
Good, David. How are you?
I was giving it to you to take home. I wasn't preparing your coffee.
We're gonna risk it.
It came from I mean, you drank a coffee from the same place already. Tastes so much better in a mug, though, right?
It does, especially a Pate State mug. Wow. Look at that. Now I need a napkin. It was spilled everywhere, but yeah.
There you go. So
I'm like a branding billboard right now.
So ever since I know you got to see him the other day. Ever since you told me about listening to him, I've been jamming a little bit of his music, Hudson Westbrook.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Nice. I did too on my drive through the. Are we calling those hills or mountains?
They're mountains. Hills are in Austin.
They're mountains, yeah.
Yeah.
North Georgia, South Tennessee. I'm good, thank you. Yeah, we had extra napkins over.
Did you give some time to the Morgan Wallen album? The 34 songs that are on there?
Yeah, it's too many songs for an album. Any album.
I think it was really good.
I don't go 37 songs, but I remember the days of like 12-song albums.
Yep.
37's too much. I just feel like if you're writing that much music for one album, when you put one, unless you haven't put one out in 10 years, that's like some Bruce Springsteen-ish stuff. Like I don't know, you're not that important. And I'm going to watch him in a couple weeks. I love the songs, but 37's a lot.
Well, so
and I feel like you're oversaturating yourself when you do that. That's just
here's been my methodology though. I'm going 1 through 12 as the album right now, and then when I get tired of it, I'll go from. I've listened to the whole thing, but like I'm right now 1 through 12. 1 through 12, I feel like every song, even the interlude, I can jam.
Okay.
And then I'll move on 12 to 24 and 24 to 36.
That. I actually like that.
So
you know what
albums.
I thought of yesterday? If I would have been on my game, but I was just tired from all the moving around. I was tired of driving because I went to happy birthday to I don't know what we call her. There's the Big Truth. Amber, his wife. I don't know if she's like the real truth or Ella's the little truth. I don't know what we call Amber, but Big Truth's wife. Happy birthday, I would say which one, but I don't know if she's advertising that 50th. But
you just did.
I told her she's not careful, she's going to age out of the Real Housewives of College Station. Like they're going to push her out. There's going to be a new group come in, but her birthday where we saw Westbrook is like 5 hours away. Drove to that. Drove to Dallas last week. Drove to Austin. Drove to Tennessee. But if I was on my game, I really should have, just for the sake of sports, driven. I was about 2 hours away, I think, from Knoxville. I should have driven there, just bought a ticket, gone in, or talked to somebody I know at Tennessee. I don't even know if there is anybody, but go into that game and watch that super regional final last night. That would have been pretty epic. Yeah. I don't know that I've ever watched an SEC baseball game at an opposing home field without A&M being a part of it. So just to go to that game and kind of not care, kind of root for Tennessee just for the whole environment of it would have been pretty epic.
Yeah.
That was kind of a miss by me, I think.
I wanted to go to one of your tweets because I think it's a good talking point that the ranking the SEC quarterbacks from College Football Report.
Okay. But I do want to talk college baseball.
Okay, you want to do it here?
No, that would have been a nice segue into it. Like,
I didn't know.
Speaking of that game last night, what about what's happening?
Well, okay. Well, can I tell you the why behind it?
Why?
Because there's many. This is what happens. Executive decisions on the show. I will come with a plan, and then you'll say to me, "We talked college baseball yesterday. We did early. We're moving on."
Lots happened since.
So okay, well let's talk yesterday then. We don't have to do this list.
No, I do want to do that list. I wanted to talk about that and this FPI, whatever our rankings that came out.
A&M in the top 10,
8, which I thought was too high. But there's a lot on that list that I thought was weird. And then we can make the case, why shouldn't, maybe not 8, but why shouldn't they be a little higher than they are? Because you have to look at the teams around them.
Sure.
It's not about, it is about how good a specific team is. But when you're contesting or questioning a ranking, you got to look at who's around them. Say, okay, what would you do with this? And that's kind of how with Texas, I keep landing on. I won't fight anyone over putting them number one. I don't think they're going to be as good as that this year, but you can present questions for me about Ohio State, certainly Georgia, Notre Dame, the Penn State. You'll be up there and you're like, man, they look like they could be legit, but I'm going. Am I going that far in with Drew Aller? I don't know. So every one of those teams in contention in that top 5, you could really question. That particular ranking I'm talking about had Clemson at like 11. I think they should be in that discussion as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. But baseball, speaking of Clemson, one of the many regional hosts that were bounced and bounced early. This has been the craziest, wildest postseason I think anyone's ever seen in college baseball. LSU was so lucky to get out of Baton Rouge last night themselves. What a great atmosphere there. When the favored team is on the ropes in sports, there's nothing. When the favored team is on the ropes at home and their season is hanging in the balance and they're coming back against a heavy underdog, there's nothing better. I remember seeing it in Tuscaloosa with Johnny and A&M and the way Alabama, that place was just silent. And then they roared back at the end only to have DeShazer Everett, make that interception off A.J. McCarron right at the goal line. I saw it here with Bama and A&M where the Aggies were up early. Bama blocks the punt. That it's poetry in sports when stuff gets that crazy. It's particularly, I would say A&M Northern Iowa, but that's March Madness. It's different because it tends to be way more neutral. The underdog gets a big following. So, unfortunately, we saw it in softball happen to A&M a few weeks ago. But when that happens, it's pretty insane. And last night, that atmosphere at the box was really cool. I was rooting obviously, for Arkansas Little Rock. All the crap I've heard from LSU fans this year, I was ready to see them having one of the more epic bounces of them all. And for Little Rock to be a 4 seed, lose the first game, beat the crap out of LSU Sunday night, and then come back and go up 5-1 and try to hang on was theater. And there was theater throughout college baseball. And so this, there's no Texas. There's no Vandy. And by the way, Texas, you did damn near what A&M did in softball that you spent a week talking about, chirping about. You were the number 2 overall seed, didn't get out of your own regional. It was the number 1 overall seed, didn't get out of theirs. You were number 2. Not much difference, except Vandy did exactly what A&M did in losing to. I've lost track of all these underdogs. Was it Wright State?
Yep.
Wright State, Murray State, Arkansas, Little Rock. You got they're literally everywhere right now. Duke's in there. SEC peed down their leg in this postseason. And again, Nuño, I used to worry about that. When you'd have programs you really recruit against, like OU and Texas, and your big advantage was the SEC, and people never understood that. Why are you SEC? Well, number one, I love the league. It's fun. Even in baseball, where they've just completely wet the bed, it was a hell of a fun year to watch this league and follow it and watch A&M go from buried to making a push to, the weekend against Missouri. Like, the whole thing is like a roller coaster. And then even watching the league lose right now is like headline stuff. My days of wanting to see SEC dominance when A&M's not a part of it are over. I still used to want that because the league being that strong on some level should have, would have, could have, did at times help A&M in recruiting, particularly the state of Texas, against those programs. Now it doesn't do anything for me in that regard. But I think Aggie fans, Longhorn fans, Sooners, LSU, Florida Gator, everybody still wants the league up top, because what happens is there are playoff berths and you get the benefit of the doubt. And this is what people like Danny Cannell cry about all the time. 9 times out of 10, it's legitimate. There are playoff berths that you get the benefit of the doubt. There are, college football playoff, March Madness, hosting. You're on the cut line to be a regional host or a top 8 national seed, or you get a 1 seed or 2 seed in the tournament versus a 3 or 4. Like, all of those things factor in. So you want the league to be up, but a lot of that is no longer the case with me, because so much of it had to do with A&M's advantage of being in this league.
Yeah. All right, let's hit a break. We'll come back. Right now we're talking Heritage Films. Chance McClain's not just a filmmaker. He's a storyteller. He's an Aggie. Well, he's got an Aggie heart because his daughter went to A&M, and he just embraced all of our cultures. And that's why a bunch of his first clients were all Aggies. In fact, if you look at most of his roster, they're mostly Aggies, because Aggies take care about their story. And he's doing a couple different things. The Heritage Film part of it is telling people's stories, their documentary story, right? That's part of what he's doing. But he's doing farm and ranch films as well, which tell the story of the ranch, that your family ranch, of how that land was found, the story behind it, your own Yellowstone version of that story. He'll do it in a Netflix-style documentary that you're going to love. You got to check out the website, yourheritagefilm.com. That is yourheritagefilm.com. He is a great storyteller. He can tell your family story, your family business story, and also your family ranch story. Check out the website, yourheritagefilm.com, or call him up, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341.
All right, guys, let's talk about some new partners. Aggieland Hydration and Injectables. They're Aggie owned and operated. They are an mobile IV hydration company that was founded back in 2024. I met with Sheldon and Danny over the last week, and they're awesome people. They really know what they're doing. They're proud to serve Bryan College Station with awesome services like IV hydration, Botox, and even some weight loss options. Whether you're looking for a quick boost of hydration or dehydration preventative, they can tailor an IV cocktail specific to your needs. And on a busy weekend, I know some of you guys might be partying a little bit too much. If that's the case, An IV can be one of the easiest ways to ensure you're receiving all those necessary vitamins and minerals that make you feel better. Their overall mission is to bring a more personalized and accessible wellness option to the broader range of clientele here in the Bryan College Station and Brazos Valley area. To book an appointment or inquire about it, just call them up or text them. 979-217-1561. Again, it's Aggieland Hydration and Injectables. Check them out. It's our friends at Aggieland Hydration and Injectables.
All right, Billy, hype over substance. Let's talk a little bit about those rankings. And there's several rankings out there. Just the most recent one that you, by the way, it's TexAgs Live presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, but the most recent one you tweeted about. Because you look at these rankings and Arch may end up being the best quarterback in the league. He might be. John Mateer might be a top 5 quarterback. I've heard nothing but great things about him, right? All these things I've heard. Ty Simpson, is he too low? Is he too high? Austin Simmons. There's Marcello in the middle or past the middle of the pack. I think a lot of these things are based on what you did in high school or what we think you're supposed to be. But there isn't a lot of substance in these rankings because there isn't a lot of film at least at this level in the SEC on these quarterbacks. You look through the entire league, very few guys have started games in the league or more than a handful of games.
Yeah, and look, I replied to that. I said I would put Sellers 1, Nussmeier 2. And then it's like, well, what are you rating them on? Because after that, but like I've said, I don't fully trust Nussmeier. I don't trust Nuss. But I think he's done enough and had enough good games against good opposition to put him up there until proven otherwise. So this, I guess, if this is just what you're projecting, because it has to be if you're putting Arch at 1. I'm not hating on Arch Manning. And by all accounts, too, he also seems like
good
a really likable dude, a leader. He seems like a winner. But we don't know that. And I think it's fair. And last year, Texas fans dogpiled me for saying I didn't think in any world Quinn Ewers was going to be a Heisman finalist, a top 5 or number 1 overall draft pick. When people absolutely in Austin were saying that, without question. A lot of people were saying that and believing that. Or first round pick. I didn't think any of that. Maybe late first. Maybe I got duped into that because of the hype. But I never fully bought in on Quinn. I thought he's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
I do. I always thought he's a good quarterback. But I have questions about Arch, and just simply that with Quinn, he was injured. He came back. It was a struggle for them inside the 20. Did Sark make a mistake by not playing Arch more in there? He was such a running threat. Man, what would that do to open up him as a passer? Just to kind of present run and let this guy throw if he's going to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And did Sark make a mistake in not doing that, or was there a reason he didn't do that? Did he not trust Manning as a freshman, putting it up inside the 20 in key moments of must-win games for them? Because we just didn't see it ever in games that mattered. Somebody pulled up something he threw against like Mississippi State or Louisiana Monroe in games that mattered down the stretch when they were really struggling in the red zone. A&M, I think Clemson, Arizona State, and obviously Ohio State cost them the game. Georgia also. So those games, like they were. That makes me wonder: was that just a mistake of being too loyal to his veteran guy by Sark, or was that, hey, he's not quite ready, which is fine, but because of that, I wouldn't say surefire best quarterback in the SEC, Heisman contender, leading them to a national title. Let's put him at 1. That's all I'm saying. I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up there.
Yeah.
But as of today, are you doing it off potential and or are you doing it off what they've proven, or is it a combination? Because if it's potential, then 1, 2, fine. Then let's make it some form or fashion Arch and Lagway, right? If it's what have they proven, well, there's only one guy on this list that's beaten Bama. I'm kidding. Actually, there's 2. I was making, that was a number 16 Zach Calzada joke.
Right.
You didn't know.
Yeah, I did.
Did you know?
Yeah, he's on there. He's actually of the SEC
you don't look
quarterbacks.
like you knew where I was going with it. But he beat Bama, and so did Diego Pavia, who, again, if you're going like with what they've proven, then it's like Sellers, Nussmeier, Pavia should be at or near the top. And by the way, also, Marcel Reed should be a lot higher.
By the way, Calzada, what made me think of that was Calzada, if you look at who's started games in the SEC, even though it's been a few years, he's got a lot of games started in the SEC compared to some of these guys.
There's a lot. You look at some of these names, this is a very weird. And first of all, why is Joey Aguilar at 12 ahead of even Jackson Arnold, Blake Shapen, or Zach Calzada? I don't understand that one. Austin Simmons ahead of Marcel Reed. I feel like I feel like Simmons, Simpson, and Matier are the wild cards. Those 3.
Okay.
Matier was so good at Washington State. I think that's insanely high to have him at 4 now today. You played at Washington State in the Pac-12 when it was dying, the bastardized Pac-12 where you basically played a Big West schedule last year, and now they're putting him all the way up at 4. I mean, look, they got Pavia at 6, who a year ago we'd said the same thing about from New Mexico State. I get it. But Mateer, wild card, Ty Simpson, wild card. If Ty Simpson is a top 4 quarterback in the league, Bama's a national title contender again.
Yep.
If Ty Simpson's not good, they're going to be ready to run Kalen DeBoer out of Tuscaloosa after 2 years because he's going to lose 3 games and he's going to lose at least 3 this year. And then Austin Simmons, it's like the Lane Kiffin question. Does it just not matter who quarterbacks Lane? They're going to put up big numbers and win games in Oxford? Because they've talked a lot about Simmons' talent. Marcel Reed at 10 is too low. I'm sorry. I'm not advocating that he should be in the top 3 or 4 or anything right now. At 10, to me,
7 or 8,
it's too low. 6, 7. Like who look at the people we're putting up ahead of him. Again, like Austin Simmons, Ty Simpson, Gunnar Stockton.
What has he done?
I'd say he looked composed against Texas when he came in, but he threw what should have been a pick 6 to lose the SEC championship.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like a guy that hasn't played that much, that's fine. He looked like hammered ass against Notre Dame. And like I said, should have thrown a pick 6. If the Texas DB just reads his block, it's a 70-yard pick 6 to lose the game.
Yeah.
So how do we just throw this guy in at number 7 and you got Reed at 10? So, yeah, and I mentioned Mateer. I wouldn't advocate right now for Marcel to be ahead of some of these guys. But, again, like I've said it before, I'll say it again. If the defense doesn't let A&M down, we're having a much different conversation about Marcel Reed. And all the same things that he still has to do to truly prove it.
It just changed the perception. It does.
Yeah, because you come from 21-0 down at Auburn to lead them to a victory, and his stats in that game were nice. And he led them to the game-winning touchdown. He led them to the game-winning score with under 2 minutes left in Vegas, where he walked it in from 20-something out. The feel of Marcel Reed changes significantly outside of and maybe even to some degree inside of College Station, where they're all, not all, but I see plenty of calls for Miles O'Neal because people watch the spring game. I like Miles, and I think you like circle him as one of the guys on this roster that's like, okay, we're not anointing anything here. He probably is not your starter this year. You know, he's not going to be, unless we have one of these years like we always seem to have around here where
somebody gets hurt,
quarterbacks play. But man, he's got a lot of potential, and there's a lot to like about him. I will absolutely, like, I'm bullish on Miles O'Neal, but I'm bullish on Marcel Reed right now too. He should be, and not to say, again, I'm not advocating all SEC, All-American, Heisman, but to have him as the 10th best QB in the league right now, to me, seems a little low based on what we've seen. And, you know, we'll see if he can make one of those, like, big year 1 to year 2 leaps.
Sure.
But that you could say that about most of these guys, like Zach Calzada, new school. Blake Shapen, hurt to start last year and hadn't done anything in the SEC. He's an old Baylor guy. Bo Pribula, which
hasn't played much.
You and Olin are going to destroy that poor guy's name.
I think I said Pibula, right? I took away the R.
Like Pibulus, Mr. Pib. I don't even know where you guys are going to go.
Pribula. You said it wrong too. You said it wrong too.
It's Pribula.
Per Luke, yeah. So
sorry.
I wonder how you're going to ruin that name.
I'm sorry. Evangelist. Luke's just pissed because I scooped him on the basketball schedule yesterday. He's still bitter about that.
That was nice. I saw that.
Normally, and by the way, ask Luke where 90% of his scoop comes from. Don't let the Afroed one fool you guys. Right now, we're trying to present Luke as an insider. So
he is an insider.
I have to no, he's not. I have to help him be the insider. See, hear all the laughter back there?
Yeah.
We are forging him into an insider, whether he likes it or not.
He's there.
No, he's not. But he does. He has. I think he's great insight, great passion, great hair,
especially when it comes to the
great
SEC
mustache.
And
somebody got mad at me on Twitter the other day because I said he had narrow shoulders.
They got mad at you?
Some guy said that Evangelist has put all of TexAgs.
Let me see.
I think it's Luke's burner, but he said Luke has put all of TexAgs on his shoulders. And I said, well, see, that's where he said several things about me along the way too, like real hateful.
If somebody can get a hanger, I want to see what's bigger, a hanger or his shoulders.
Well, I was like, this is where I know you're wrong already. You said Luke put TexAgs on his shoulders. He doesn't even have shoulders. But he has hair. He has a good stash. Zane's jealous of it. And I'll tell you what, for what he did with basketball coverage this year, I couldn't have been more fired up and proud of him. That's it. It ain't basketball season, Luke, so you need to find something to do around here. Today he's producing
So I am directing the show today.
He's trying to talk to you without headphones. This is not working out well. Hey, we're 6 minutes late for a break. You want to continue on this path, or do you want to move on?
The quarterback position is fascinating in the league this season. Jackson Arnold, new school. Joey Aguilar, Nico out. Taylor Green, Marcel.
We got some people in the back that think Taylor Green is one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
Austin Simmons, new. Ty Simpson, new. Gunnar Stockton, essentially new. DJ Lagway, all the potential in the world. Saw it in flashes, oft injured. Mateer, new school, new to the conference. Arch Manning, new. That's a wild amount of newness. And I think next year's SEC, because of that quarterback position, is going to look like college baseball regional weekend. It's going to be completely up in the air and all over the place, and everyone's going to beat everyone.
Newness with Nuño. Bryan College Station, game day is about to get even better. Comcast is bringing Xfinity and Comcast Business to Aggieland, delivering ultra-fast fiber internet to 70,000 homes and businesses. That means crystal clear, uninterrupted live sports streaming, whether you're watching from your couch or your favorite tailgate spot or on your phone on the way to go. No more buffering during the play, just multi-gigabyte speed, seamless streaming, and unmatched reliability. Plus, Xfinity's powerful Wi-Fi ensures you never miss a moment, whether it's SEC showdowns, NFL Sundays, or March Madness. And with more than 1,000 miles of new fiber and upcoming Xfinity retail store, Comcast is connecting sports fans like never before. Get ready to stream faster, cheer louder, and enjoy every victory with zero lag. Visit ComcastTexas.com/BCS for details on when you can start streaming like a champion. Little Christopher Wallace for you here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. I am him. And we had a schedule.
Evangelist had a great point. We're during the break, and we're having a debate on the Evangelist Nuño one-on-one basketball, which who the hell plays one-on-one basketball anymore? And Nuño,
I think it's been 3 years.
Starts using, I'm him, I'm still him.
Okay, but you left out a big part of the story.
Luke pointed out that what's happening here is David Nuño just discovered that people 5 years ago were saying I'm him, is now using it. You know how embarrassed the kids would be if you went home and told them, "Hey guys,
you know my kids look up to me.
I'm him."
You know that they look up to me, right?
For different reasons, not for your vernacular.
Well, you left out this part of the story. Back in high school, I would have destroyed you on the basketball court, and I just said, you got to go back to high school. I'm still that guy.
No, you didn't say I'm still that guy. You said I'm him.
I first said I am that guy.
You
heard it.
You are a hustle rebound guy, and I said
forever.
I said anybody in their 20s,
Chuck Hayes,
anybody in their 20s, including Luke, would beat 50-year-old you like a drum.
I just did it. Actually, how long ago did I play Cade? Like, was that 2 years ago? A year ago? When was that, Cade?
It was like a year and a half ago.
And I said you were a great basketball player. And
you played an 18-year-old walking toothpick.
How old are you, Cade?
Okay, I'm 23 right now.
23.
You played a 21-year-old
who played club baseball for A&M. Dominant athlete. Would demolish you. I got your back, Cade. Don't you worry. And Nick Savage, okay, that was a disadvantage. But the only reason was because he said he would shoot threes in an SEC game. Anyway.
You remember the old guy? Everybody has the old
guy at the club?
Playing pickup basketball, whether it was in Mission Bend.
Good neighborhood.
With the low rims, or whether it was at Sugar Mill Elementary with the really low rims, and whether it was over by St. Teresa's Church, wherever you played. The gym over there off of
there's always an old guy there. High socks.
The gym off Highway 90 in Sugarland, I forget what it used to be called, where I sat there as I don't know what grade I was in, like high school, and watched Moses Malone teach Akeem Olajuwon post moves, where I was the only person sitting there watching them. No, right in Sugarland, at the little gym. Anyone in Sugarland can confirm that all those people worked out there. It was the weirdest time in sports. You'd go in there to work out, and you'd see Thurman Thomas or Dream or Ori or Bagwell, Caminiti, up and down the list. They all worked out there. I don't know why. I guess they all lived in like kind of the Sugarland area. There was no Pearland. There was nothing really. You either lived in Houston or you lived out in Sugarland. So anyway, point being, there's always that guy that shows up that's way older than everyone else playing, and people are like, oh, crap, here he is. Like a hairy back.
Yeah, I know that guy.
You know, that deal. There's always that guy. Sleeveless shirt.
Yeah.
Like some back of arm hair.
I got none of that, by the way.
And, well, you shave it. But
not the back of
all of that, and you're not realizing that when you're playing openly challenging one-on-one basketball games to our interns and younger employees, you're signing up to be that guy. And you love it.
I don't want to be
like
back.
You embrace it.
I embrace being an athlete at 49. Yeah. I don't embrace back hair. Nobody appreciates that.
Athlete. Come on. Let's move on and talk about
we don't have time now.
Can we talk about the real? Okay, go to break. We're doing extra today, but let's talk about the real athletes. The actual athletes that we cover.
Okay. What's your fan? That was a waste of a second. Was your car hit by the recent hailstorm? Don't trust an out-of-town pop-up tent with your car. Trust somebody who's local, and they're going to take care of you. That's Classic Collision and Restoration, who specialize in paintless dent repair for hail damage. Those out-of-town pop-up tents are already gone. You got calls from them. I'm still getting phone calls, by the way. They're not going to stand the test of time. They're going to be gone. So whenever you have any issues, look, go with somebody local. A, it's better. B, because you know they're going to be here in town. They're going to be able to take care of you. They've got 25 years of experience in this market, and countless customers have trusted Classic Collision and Restoration to bring back their car to showroom form. They have top quality auto body repair and they want to make sure that you know that you're going to get what you pay for. If you go to some of those other places, you're not going to get the quality of work that you get there at Classic Collision. Don't get your car fixed, get it restored with Classic Collision and Restoration. Aggie owned and operated Doug Leopold, class of 93. Call them up, 979-779-8399, or visit them at classiccollisionandrestoration.com.
Start playing Sublime.
And we're back. TexAgs Live,
They're about
presented
to
by.
start playing Sublime, and
They were definite human traffickers. Anyway, ESPN's new computer-generated FBI has updated for the 25 season. FBI, not FBI, but P. All right, and it's got the top 25, several SEC teams on there, but I will point out the top 3 teams are SEC teams, and the 8th team, by the way, also an SEC team, and that would be your Texas A&M Aggies.
yeah, I'm looking at it right here. Let me pull it up. Again, I'm going to tell you real quick on the quick run through. Georgia, number 2, Gunnar Stockton as your quarterback, too high. Bama at 3, very interesting. A lot of that goes on Ty Simpson. I think Penn State might be too low. But this is a power index, so this is not like, I think Penn State, where they're at versus their schedule, they're a true title contender. Also, what they did last year, they weren't really tested early. Gave Notre Dame all they wanted. As I look at Notre Dame and A&M back to back at 7 and 8, A&M I think is too high at 8. You could put A&M in that
12 to 13
12 to 18 range this year, and anywhere in there, I could kind of make a case.
We spoke with somebody this weekend that was very high on Carson Beck in Miami. I still think that's too high for them.
Well, I'm not giving it away to say he actually was a Miami football employee, so yes, I can understand why.
He was very high on him.
Carson Beck. But I will say this, Carson Beck, I think the problem, it'd be interesting to see if the problem was Bobo and that Georgia offense versus Carson Beck. Carson Beck had a really good year one year, and then he last year, I mean, look, he went into Austin and made some really nice throws to beat the Longhorns and had about 8 drop passes by his receivers in that game. I know he threw some picks, but he looked really good throwing the football against that Texas defense in Austin. Again, like I said, he had about 8 drop passes. And then you saw him against Bama and Tuscaloosa in that shootout. Maybe Georgia's the problem. Maybe Bobo and those sorry-ass receivers Georgia had are the problem. That's why they had to go get Noah Thomas. I think Tennessee at 10 is too high without Nico. And I don't even think Nico was great, but you take him out and you put in the guy that couldn't beat him out.
Yep.
And I have to wonder how Tennessee is ranked ahead of Clemson and Cade Klubnik.
Yep.
And by the way, a couple of absolute monsters on the D-line. So I think Clemson and LSU are a little too low there. And looking at the rest of that list, I think Arkansas being on it should negate the entire list. And I think Arizona State at 24 is way too low.
I didn't even realize.
Leavitt, I like the receiver, and I love Dillingham, the head coach. I think ASU at 24 is too low. There you go.
Did you say something about LSU? Sorry, at 12 you did?
I think they're a little low for that. Yeah. I think they're a little high in the eyes of their always condescending and think they're better than they are fan base. But I think 12 is too low for them this year.
Billy, thank you, sir.
That's it.
That was fun.
We're doing after segment too.
Do you want to?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what about, but we are.
I guess we're going to go long.
I'm going to talk a little more about this.
We can do the content meeting during that as part of the on-air thing. That's a good idea. All right, that's going to do it for TexAgs Live on a Tuesday. Tomorrow on the program, John Harris, Trisha Ford, I think Pat Henry. I'm hoping for Pat Henry. I believe that we'll have Jason Howell for Recruiting Country, and Bronny will be joining me for the Go Hour because OB is on vacay, heading out to hang out with his son. So awesome stuff there. Thank you so much for everybody watching and listening. Appreciate all the feedback, the text messages, and the comments on the YouTube and TexAgs chat. We will see you all mañana.